and welcome to South Asia Today, a show that provides you the glimpses of South Asia. I'm your host Pratiksha Mishra. Let's begin with the headlines first. India's booming economy fuels rapid logistics expansion. Afghan women sing in protest against strict Taliban laws. And Indigo becomes first Indian carrier to adopt RNPAR flight procedure for operation in Nepal. Let's begin the show. India's logistics sector is undergoing a significant transformation driven by government policies, technological advancements, and a burgeoning e-commerce market. Traditional players are adopting new technologies, and innovations like drones are contributing to the development of a world-class logistics network. Here's a closer look. India's growing economy is fueling rapid expansion in the logistics industry, driven by increasing demand, government support, and technological progress. This momentum is establishing India as a major player in global logistics. DTDC, a leading integrated express logistics provider, has revolutionized goods movement, particularly during peak festival seasons, by utilizing multiple channels and riders for seamless delivery. While manpower remains crucial, technology plays an essential role in their operations. The combination of innovation and strategic expansion has positioned DTDC and other Indian firms as leaders in the rapidly growing logistics sector.
हमारे पास में छोटी शिपमेंट्स लेकिन उसकी काउंट बहुत ज़्यादा होती है, तो उस केस में क्या होता है, या हमारे पास हमारे कुछ चैनल पार्टनर, हमारे खुद की कंपनी के चैनल पार्टनर हैं, हम कुछ चैनल पार्टनर को यूज़ करते हैं, उसके बाद में हमारी खुद की बाइक राइडर होती हैं। इसके अलावा कंपनी ने हमारे को ये टूल दिया है कि आप बाइक राइडर हायर कर सकते हैं एक या 2 या 3 दिन के लिए। तो आपने एक पार्सल रखना हो, जो स्कैनर राउटिंग लेवल है ना, जो बारकोड है उसको पढ़ेगा, स्टडी करेगा, और जो स्टेशन पे जिसका डेस्टिनेशन पे उसको जाना है उसी में जाके वो गिरेगा, उसी हिसाब से उसका बैग बनेगा या गाड़ी में लोड होगा। और आज हमारी जो सर्विस है, हम ये कह लो कि 95% हम डिलीवरी कर रहे हैं।
While private companies have significantly transformed India's logistics sector, government initiatives like the PM Gati Shakti scheme are also vital. Launched in 2021, the National Master Plan for Multimodal Connectivity aims to improve infrastructure across economic zones. Following a 2% contraction in financial year 2021, the Indian logistics market rebounded with 14% growth in financial year 2022, reaching a $435 billion. Ernst & Young projects it will expand to $591 billion by financial year 27. As India aims for a $5.5 trillion economy by 2027, robust logistics infrastructure will be critical to driving this growth.
As you would be aware, we are looking for a $5.5 trillion economy by 2027 and about upwards of about $30 trillion economy by 2047 or so. So the logistics sector, which contributes about 14% to the GDP currently, is going to be the major booster and the driver for the growth for the country. And in the logistic performance index, where we have jumped 6 spaces from the previous report of 44 to 38 now, we are intending to, the government is intending to reach in top 25 and cut down on the logistic wastage and the logistic cost and bring down to somewhere close to about 6 to 8% of the GDP in the times to come.
Resilient and efficient logistics infrastructure in the country. That means good transportation network, whether it is railways, whether it is aviation, highways, ports, waterways, and so on. And second part is first mile and last mile delivery, right? Because ultimately logistics impacts both the domestic competitiveness as well as the export sector.
As the logistics sector evolves, technology is playing an increasingly vital role. A notable development is the use of drones, with companies like Bonvi Aero leading the way. Bonvi's drones, capable of carrying up to 50 kilograms, can be customized for various operations, including military and agricultural uses. These drones are set to revolutionize last-mile delivery, particularly in remote and hard-to-reach areas of India.
we are building in the space of logistic aerial vehicles, or you can call it like simply logistic drones. This is like a 50 kg platforms which are currently used by the Indian Defence for hilly area logistic transports.
The government has implemented several measures targeting India's logistics and supply chain industry. In 2022, the National Logistics Policy was launched to streamline logistics, enhance MSME competitiveness, and reduce costs. Complemented by the Logistics Efficiency Enhancement Program, this policy focuses on improving freight transport efficiency. Additional measures include forming an EXIM logistics group, developing port connectivity, and utilizing the Logistics Data Bank app to enhance cargo monitoring and reduce supply chain waste. Moving on. Since seizing control in 2021, the Taliban's restrictions on women and freedom of expression have drawn sharp global criticism. Afghan women, both within the country and abroad, have responded by sharing videos on social media where they sing revolutionary songs in defiance of the Taliban's oppressive laws. Recently, the Taliban formalized an extensive list of moral regulations which include mandates for women to cover their faces, men to grow beards, and drivers to refrain from playing music. Additionally, these rules stipulate that women must wear clothing that fully conceals their bodies and faces, and drivers are prohibited from transporting women unless accompanied by a male guardian.
Afghan women activists inside and outside the country have published videos of themselves on social media singing revolutionary songs against the strict laws of the Taliban government. In one song, the singer asked, "Will you seal the silence of my mouth until the second order?" referring a supposed future Taliban order lifting restrictions. The Taliban last week formally codified a long set of rules governing morality, ranging from requiring women to cover their faces and men to grow beards to banning car drivers from playing music.
خب در طول این مدت که 3 سال طالبان آمدید به افغانستان و حاکم شدین، برنامه‌های زیادی برای حذف زنان داشتین. از شروع مکاتب که برای خانم‌ها مکاتب بسته کردن و همچنین هم تو دانشگاه‌ها و مرور زمان کار از پیششان گرفتن. اکنون فشارهایی که جهان بر سر اینا میاره و یا رسمیت به اینا نمیده یا تعامل با اینا نمیکنه، اینها همین فشارها را بر سر زنان میارن. میتونن از این برنامه‌ها و از این فشارها با استفاده از زنها این برنامه‌ها را کاملا تطبیق بکنن در کشور و سودش از جهان بگیرن.
Afghanistan, a nation once filled with aspirations, has been plunged into darkness under the Taliban's rule. Since their return to power, the country has witnessed a severe erosion of women's rights, making it one of the most repressive places for women and girls in the world.
فرصت‌های خیلی خوبی است که طالبان جهان میتونه از این منابعی که طالبان میتونه فربی بکنه جلوگیری بکنه، اونا رو دعوت نکنه و اونا پول گزاف طالبان نکنه و بیشتر با مردم تعامل بکنه و ببینه که حقیقت طالب چی هست.
The Taliban rules require women to wear attire that fully covers their bodies and faces, as well as instructing drivers of vehicles not to transport women without a male guardian. The Taliban's restrictions on women and freedom of expression have drawn sharp criticism from rights groups and many foreign governments since the former insurgents resumed control of Afghanistan in 2021. The Taliban say they respect women's rights in accordance with their interpretation of Islamic law and local customs, and they are internal matters that should be addressed locally.
بیرون از افغانستان فعالیت‌های اجتماعی برنامه هایی هست که ما با سیاسیون ارتباط داریم، با سازمان هایی که میتونن با اینا تعامل بکنن، تصویر حقیقی اینا رو نشان میدیم که اگر این گونه اینا روش برنامه ریزی بکنن، کار بکنن، نمیتونیم یک جامعه پایدار داشته باشیم.
The Taliban's severe mistreatment of women has left Afghanistan isolated on the global stage, with most nations refusing to recognize Taliban as the legitimate government. The United Nations has also made it clear that recognition is not an option as long as bans on women's education and employment persist. While the international community remains firm in its condemnation, the Taliban dismisses these criticisms as unwelcome foreign interference. As Afghanistan struggles under this authoritarian rule, the conflict between the Taliban's oppressive governance and global call for human rights persists. The country's future remains uncertain, trapped between a harsh past and the hope for a more just future.
Now we take a look at some happenings in Asia in our segment called Asia Watch.
Pope Francis was greeted by crowds waving small Vatican and Indonesian flags as his car arrived at Jakarta's Merdeka Presidential Palace. The pontiff, who suffers from knee and back pain, was seated in a wheelchair as he left his car and met Indonesian President Joko Widodo outside the building. The two leaders were saluted by an honor guard playing the Indonesian and Vatican anthems before heading inside for a private meeting. Indonesian Foreign Minister Retno Marsudi told journalists that Francis and Widodo had not spoken specifically about the Israel-Gaza war in their meeting, but more generally about ongoing conflicts and the importance of peace. India and Singapore signed memorandums of understanding for cooperation in semiconductors, digital technologies, skill development and healthcare during Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to the city-state. Modi was received by his Singapore counterpart Lawrence Wong and accorded a ceremonial welcome at the Singapore Parliament before heading into delegation-level talks. The Indian Prime Minister is scheduled to visit the semiconductor facility of Singapore-based AEM Holdings Limited before calling upon the Singapore President Tharman Shanmugaratnam and attending a business roundtable later on Thursday. Coastal towns and cities in India and Pakistan braced for a rare August cyclone last week as heavy rains and winds forced authorities to close schools and evacuate thousands. In Pakistan's largest city, Karachi, authorities asked fishermen and sailors not to venture out to sea and warned that the storm is likely to result in flooding in cities as well as floods in hilly areas in coming days.
Moving on to Nepal, where Indigo Airlines has become the first Indian carrier to adopt the required navigation performance authorization required RNPAR flight procedure for operations in Kathmandu. This advanced technology enables safer and more efficient landings at the Tribhuvan International Airport, which is nestled in a valley surrounded by the Himalayas. Captain Rajiv Singh, head of training at Indigo, emphasized that this adoption enhances safety and precision in the challenging high-altitude terrain of the airport. Indigo Airlines has become the first Indian carrier to adopt the required navigation performance authorization required flight procedure for operations in Kathmandu, which enables safer and more efficient landings at the Tribhuvan International Airport, which is nestled in a valley surrounded by the Himalayas. Captain Rajiv Singh, head of training at Indigo, claimed the air service provider to be the first amongst Indian carriers flying to Kathmandu to adopt the RNPAR flight procedure.
Fortunately, today was the day where we were able to do it, and we are also proud to say that we are the first airline from India to carry out this approach. So we are happy about it.
The RNPAR technology is specifically designed for airports in geographically challenging and high-altitude regions such as the Trivandrum International Airport. The airport's tabletop runway and surrounding terrain require pilots to exercise extra caution during takeoff and landing.
So today we carry out the validation flight for an RNPAR approach, which basically is an advanced approach where we have a lateral separation from the terrain, which eventually turns out to be a safer approach, which is also more operationally efficient, I would say.
Captain Shweta Singh and Seema Jhamnani from Directorate General of Civil Aviation India and Captain Shelja Munankarmi and another official from Civil Aviation Authority of Nepal were on board the validation flight. The new system provides more assurance about safety than traditional approaches which have been in practice for a long time.
So in terms of safety, the traditional way of avoiding the terrain is to fly over the mountains, and then for approach you dive down so that you're on the profile for the landing. In the RNPAR approach, because of higher accuracy with advanced equipment, the use of GPS and onboard equipment, we are able to avoid the terrain laterally. So we can commence our profile earlier than what would the traditional approach be. So that allows you to come in stabilized for the approach, and which eventually will turn out into safer landings, so to say, and also better margins from the terrain as well.
Lying at an elevation of 4,390 feet above sea level, the Trivandrum International Airport in Kathmandu can only be touched down by navigating through narrow passes, leaving little room for error. The steep descent required to land adds another level of difficulty, demanding precise control and extensive experience. The Trivandrum International Airport poses unique challenges due to its location, with steep descents required to land and narrow passes to navigate through. In Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan villages surrounding Skardu are facing critical challenges in infrastructure and healthcare. Despite their proximity to the renowned Satpara Lake, villages like Sadpara struggle with poor road conditions, inconsistent electricity, and the lack of a fully operational civil dispensary. This deficiency in medical services has resulted in tragic consequences, including the recent deaths of 2 newborns. Locals report frequent closures and severe understaffing at the dispensary, which compounds their difficulties. Here's a closer look at the situation.
Villages surrounding Skardu city in Pakistan-occupied Gilgit-Baltistan have been facing severe hardships due to inadequate infrastructure and a shortage of basic facilities. Satpara, a village located near Satpara Lake, just a few kilometers from Skardu district, is grappling with significant infrastructural issues, particularly concerning the lack of a civil dispensary. Despite numerous complaints to the authorities, residents continue to face lack of essential services. Although Satpara is situated near the picturesque Satpara Lake, a major tourist attraction in POGB, it remains deprived of basic amenities like a dispensary, proper roads, infrastructure and electricity.
कल जो सतपारा के सिविल डिस्पेंसरी के हवाले से हमने जो इशू उठाया था वो जेन्युइन इशू है, हकीकी इशू है, जिस पे हमने काफ़ी मेहनत भी की है, आगे हम मिले भी हैं। यहाँ जो टेक्निकल स्टाफ की हमने बात की थी, तीन टेक्निकल स्टाफ सिविल डिस्पेंसरी में होते हैं, लेकिन यहाँ पे वाहिद एक डिस्पेंसर मौजूद है, ना LHP है, ना कोई नर्सिंग स्टाफ यहाँ पे मौजूद है, कोई भी नहीं है। जो बाकी के स्टाफ जो 9 स्टाफ होते हैं उसमें से 3 स्टाफ यहाँ पे काम कर रहे हैं। वाहिद एक डिस्पेंसरी है जो कि बंद पड़ी हुई है। ये क्या यहाँ के आवाम के साथ मजाक नहीं है तो क्या है? अगर हुकाम वाला इस पर नोटिस न ले, अब भी खामोशी किनिस होते रहे तो जो बच्चे 2 बच्चे इसी माह अगस्त में डिलीवरी के दौरान फौत हुए, ये एलएचपी के ना होने की वजह से, अगर यहाँ पे एलएचपी होती तो ये दोनों बच्चे फौत ना होते।
The lack of adequate medical facilities has had tragic consequences. Recently, 2 newborn babies in Satpara died due to the lack of proper medical care as the village lacks proper medical facilities. The ongoing issues in Gilgit-Baltistan underscore broader concerns about health facilities and basic services in the region, which has faced persistent difficulties since its occupation by Pakistan.
यहाँ पे सतपारा डिस्पेंसरी में हमेशा से दवाई का मसला रहा है। यहाँ पे ज़रूरत की जो दवाई होती है वो नहीं मिलती है, और जो तैनात डिस्पेंसर यहाँ पे लगाते हैं, मेरी तो ज़ाती उस पर बहुत सारी शिकायत हैं। कभी आते ही नहीं, हफ्ते में कोई 3 दफ़ा आते हैं, 5 दिन गायब रहते हैं। जब आते हैं तो 1 बजे वापस चले जाते हैं। तो हमारा ख्याल यही है इस डिस्पेंसरी पर ख़ास तवज्जो दी जाए।
Pakistan's approach to the development of occupied region of Gilgit-Baltistan reveals a troubling pattern of neglect and insufficient investment. Despite its natural beauty, the region suffers from chronic underdevelopment due to the government's inadequate funding and slow policy implementation. Bureaucratic inefficiencies and a lack of effective local representation exacerbate these issues, leaving Gilgit-Baltistan feeling marginalized and disconnected from development efforts. This neglect not only stifles the region's potential but also undermines the well-being of its residents, highlighting a significant disparity between the government's development priorities and the needs of the local people in Gilgit-Baltistan.
Now it's time for me to wrap up today's episode. We will be back next week at the same time. This is Pratiksha Mishra signing off on the behalf of the entire production team of South Asia Today. Goodbye and take care.